Hi, my name is Phil. I like talking about politics, and today, as the title suggests, Labour have just pissed away what chance they had at a majority in the general election. Now, this is something, start today, I wasn't planning on doing a video on this because I thought it was a fairly a fait accompli anyway. I didn't think there was anything remarkable. But then interesting things started happening through the day. There was a motion to be put forward, and indeed it has been put forward to the Labour Party conference, to force the party to back unequivocally a Remain position before the general election, not a wait and see position, which is what it currently is. And this is normally impossible because the unions together have votes enough to basically ignore all the actual Labour Party members at these conferences. And so, yeah, that was the way it was going to go. But then something interesting happened. Before I get onto that, if you find yourself enjoying the video, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So it began really with Unison, one of the big three unions, deciding to break ranks. What normally happens, indeed what did happen here, is Jeremy Corbyn goes off with the unions a bit ahead of these votes, thrashes out a position so they can all be united. In other words, so he can get the result he wants. And it doesn't matter how the actual delegates vote then. And that's what happened. But the problem is that ultimately all the unions want us to be Remain. They know how damaging it is for jobs and therefore their members to leave the EU. Any suggestion that we would do otherwise is incredibly damaging, not only to the party's electoral prospects, but to their members. And they were obviously convinced, well, and it works for me in a way, well, because we're back in a public vote with Remain as an option, I mean, you know, you've still got that, haven't you? Yeah, all right then. But they came to the conclusion, Unison and a few other unions, that this is actually killing Labour's electoral chances. It's obvious to everyone. They can't win the general election without being a full Remain party. Just to highlight, you know, Emily Thornberry's talking today, it may have been yesterday, it was in the Yorkshire Post, about the fact that in Yorkshire, Labour have been hemorrhaging voters. They've lost 40% of its voters, with most of them, of course, as expected, going to Remain parties. And any that have gone to Brexit parties, you can't get them back because Labour isn't really gung-ho about Brexit either. So, you know, Len McCluskey is saying, no, we need to have this position so that we're not splitting off half the country. We need to appeal to both Leavers and Remainers. No, you piss off both. You are like repellent to both. The Labour position is now repellent to me. But so what happened was, so with these unions now deciding to break ranks with the leadership, what it meant was if an overwhelming number of the Labour member delegates voted that the party should be a Remain party, would have swung it. It would have gone through. It would have been nicer if more of the unions had have done this, but it would have been just about enough. It had to have been an overwhelming number. But the problem was, at first I was thinking this had a good chance because it was being reported that Jeremy Corbyn was going to be neutral on this, but then he wasn't. So the vote was billed at conference as being a choice between support for the leader, Jeremy Corbyn, or support for Remain. It's like if you support this motion, it's like almost a vote of no confidence in Jeremy Corbyn. Well, the problem is there's an awful lot of support for Jeremy Corbyn in the party membership. And a lot of those are not happy with his Brexit position, but they're happy with everything else. Well, I hope not everything else after this weekend, but his policies, should we say at least. Which, as I say, I'm mostly on board with. There's a couple of little quibbles, but generally speaking, I'd actually like to be talking positively about them right now. But unfortunately, we've got these rather more urgent matters first. And so because it became that, the motion lost. So if anyone's like last year, I kept saying conference wanted us to get behind a public vote with Remain as an option. And people were saying to me, oh no, but conference, you know, put forward this motion and they voted for it. It's like, no, they didn't. The unions voted for it. Conference didn't. But this year, actually, if someone says that, it's like, yeah, they did. They actually chose to do that. And here's how ridiculous the situation is now. And it would have been better if you supported Jeremy Corbyn. You would have done him far more of a favour by supporting this motion. And I will explain why. This is now what's going to happen. So, General election comes around. Let's say Labour win a majority, form a government, Jeremy Corbyn number 10, hooray. Now, for the next 3 months, Labour has no position on Brexit. Officially, no position on Brexit. It's not in favour of it, it's not against it. He will spend 3 months negotiating his withdrawal agreement. Not going to go into that now, not really relevant at the moment. After those 3 months, then that's available. They'll have a special conference where the party, and I don't know who's in this special conference, I strongly suspect I know, will decide on what Labour's official policy is. Is it going to be to support the withdrawal agreement that Labour have just negotiated? Or is it to support Remain? Now, here's the scenario. If they support the Labour agreement, in other words, if they support Brexit, you basically split the party because people don't want that, and more specifically, the senior leadership don't want that. The shadow cabinet at the moment have been fairly stable because it represents the fairly small number of people that Jeremy Corbyn can count on as actual allies in Parliament. He can't get rid of them. Some of them have been very old allies of his as well. He doesn't want to get rid of them. They're very close to him. But they, like John McDonnell, for example, they are backing Remain under all circumstances. Simple as that. They are not going to support a Labour withdrawal agreement. So he creates a situation where he will be saying the party's backing this withdrawal agreement, in other words, backing Brexit, and his leadership will go, no, we're not. So you split the party. That's crazy. That's madness. Alternative is that you back Remain, in which case you spent 3 months negotiating withdrawal agreement and gone, hey, I've got my withdrawal agreement. And then the party says, yeah, we're not voting for that. It's a stupid withdrawal agreement. We're voting to Remain. So in other words, you're going to campaign against your own agreement. Not against Conservative agreement, not against the Tory agreement, against your own agreement. You just look, frankly, at that point, utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. And this is the situation, and nothing can now stop this. And here is the thing as well, for people thinking about it. Do you remember when Nigel Farage, before the European elections, when people were saying to him, where's your manifesto, Nigel? Where's the Brexit Party manifesto? And he said, we'll release it after the election. And anyone with a brain went, that's just ridiculous. You're going to tell people what they're voting for after they've voted. That's stupid. What are Labour now doing? Labour, what's your Brexit position? You've committed to a public vote with Remain as an option. What are you going to campaign for? We'll tell you after the election. And not straight after it either. We're going to wait 3 months. Then we're going to have a conference. Then we'll tell you. What? So people like me who want the policies that have been discussed, apart from the Brexit one repels me, but I want the other policies, and I'm not at all interested. In fact, I am actively repelled by the Liberal Democrats' policies, domestic policies. I am, of course, going to vote Labour in the general election. General election isn't about one issue, and at the end of the day, they are still committing to a public vote with Remain as an option, and it's not enough. Well, it is. That is what I'm saying. It is enough for me. It'll do. I'll take it. But if you're someone, as a lot of people further to the right are, look at Labour policies, go, yeah, I could get on board with that. But actually, I am utterly repelled by your Brexit position. And then they look at the Lib Dems. They don't even have to like the Lib Dem policies. They just have to be not completely repelled by them. And then look at them, but they clearly Remain. I'll vote Lib Dem. I was thinking, even if Labour had have accepted this motion, even then, by the way, they could still have knocked it on the head. It would still have to be ratified by another group that is less inclined to. But if that group didn't ratify it, then it would very much be the leadership against the membership. That would look bad. But that's not even going to be an issue now. So, but if this had gone through and it had been Labour's official policy, we'd have still needed more to get the majority, of course. I mean, we're still way behind in the polls. But we could have made some headway here. We could have really made headway. And then there is still the possibility, of course, of the Brexit Party knocking out the Conservatives in a lot of seats. Labour could actually gain a lot of seats just because the Brexit Party are doing us a solid. But now you just look at it and you just think, What? We may still gain some seats from the Conservatives and the Brexit Party knocking each other out, assuming they don't come to an accord, which is always a risk. But, you know, for each one of those we gain, if we lose one to the Lib Dems because of our Brexit position, the best we can hope for is a minority government. And that's the best we can hope for. And then think about it. How many of Jeremy Corbyn's policies are going to get enacted then? They're not exactly the sort of things that Lib Dems are going to be keen on. And he'd have to do some horse trading to get them through with the SNP or the Lib Dems, for example. He hasn't got a great track record on that. So yeah, I now assess the risk of losing this general election as almost certain. He may get into number 10. That's not impossible. He may still end up being the largest party. I'm only doing that with massive optimism and hoping the Brexit Party somehow work against their own stated aims. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that the Brexit Party are stupider than Labour. That's ultimately where I am now. So anyway, hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.